What's a cool fact about the human body that a lot of people don't know? Your heart rate increases about a minute before partaking in exercise. It is known as the anticipatory rise and happens involuntarily. This is absolutely fascinating because I've learned about something called anticipated compensatory conditioned response, and that's quite literally the opposite of that. It's so cool seeing how your body can automatically perform two opposite counteractions in their appropriate times. If we were an RPG character, our main stat would be endurance. We are, by animal standards, hellishly undying and unrelenting terrors. These Terminator-esque nightmares that just do not stop. So ancestrally we are persistence hunters. That is, our main tactic for catching prey without fancy weapons was to just run them down. Especially in our way back home of the African desert. You can still see it all over the human body. We are nearly hairless. This lack of insulation means better heat dissipation. We have a ton of sweat glands, next to other mammals. Again, heat dissipation. Another one is our two-legged gait. Walking for us is technically just a series of controlled falls. We let gravity do half the work, and as a result use up fewer resources and generate less heat. Quadrupeds, on the other hand, have to do more work with more legs. I mean, imagine being a more or less gazelle of 500,000 years ago. You're eating, doing your thing, when this predator arrives. So you run off. Now most predators, they're lonely chase for a short distance and then call it a day. Watch cats, for instance. But this one, here he is again. So you run, he returns. You run again, he returns. You're getting hot, you have to stop and pan to lose heat. But he just keeps jogging. You run, he keeps coming. You're tired, you're fast, but not for very long. And this stretches your limits. Eventually you just lay there, exhausted and heat stunned, and this ludicrous hairless monkey just jogs on over and kills you. That's our claws, our sharp teeth. Even without our technology and tool making, we simply don't stop. You mostly breathe out of one nostril at a time, and the dominant nostril switches every hour or so. Your hands and feet alone account for more than half of all the bones in your body. 106/206. Archaeologist here. You can give birth after you've died. Occasionally we will come across a really confronting burial where the skeleton of an unborn child is halfway through its mother's pelvis. Generally what happens is the woman has died before giving birth, and after burial a buildup of gases from decomposition forces the baby out. We refer to this as coffin birth. Cutting the corpus callosum connects two brain hemispheres, can produce some freaky results, such as your hand doing that your conscious mind is aware of, writing a sentence or scratching in it without knowing. For instance, I saw a program back in the dark ages when I was a kid. It was all about the brain. One of the things they talked about was that procedure. They had a guy they were testing. One hand did better with creative things, the other did better with logic. At one point they were trying to get him to do something with the hand that didn't have an easier time with it. I think it was something like stacking blocks. He wasn't supposed to use the hand that could do it better, but as if the hand had a mind of its own, it kept interjection itself and at one point literally grabbed the hand having a problem and moved it out of the way in obvious frustration. My son has hyperplasia of the corpus callosum, and even since he was a baby, he's 11 now, when he tries to grasp something or use his hands for anything he will immobilize one arm to use the other. In therapy we worked on getting him to use both hands together, but while one hand might be reaching for a toy, the other hand would knock the toy off his table or throw it. He would get so frustrated and start yelling. He is nonverbal, flailing both arms around. We have to be careful to keep an eye on him because another thing that goes with this defect is he has a high tolerance for pain. So he might wedge one arm between his wheelchair armrests so hard that it's cutting off the circulation but not show any signs of discomfort. He has a medical bed with tall wooden slats around it, and he will stick one arm through a slot and get it stuck on purpose. Sometimes I think he would prefer to amputate arm as actively attempting to kill the mischievous arm. Brains are weird. You know the smell of rain or disturbed soil? It's a compound produced by bacteria and is called geosmin, and the human nose is extremely sensitive to it. We can smell it at as low a concentration as 5 parts per trillion. We have an internal regulator that prevents us from using our full strength. Our muscles usually only work at about 60% max of what we are capable of. In extreme life and death situations these regulators stop and we are able to use our full strength. This is how the parts where people tipped over cars and similar come from. These regulators are because at full strength we heavily damage our bodies. Essentially, you could lift something to the point where it is either lifted or your arm just breaks instead. I believe there has also been someone who ran so hard his leg broke. Women are actually programmed to forget the pain of childbirth after a few months or so. If this didn't happen, most women would only end up having one child, which would eventually lower the population. Natural redheads require increased doses of anesthesia due to some connection with the mutated melanocortin-1 receptor. I'm a natural redhead myself and developed a fear of dentists because I'd always feel what they were doing. Eventually I had an issue that couldn't be ignored and had to find a new dentist. At my first visit he took one look at me and said, "You're a real redhead." Yup, hygienist. Get me 4x the Novocaine. I knew I'd found my man, and he's been treating me ever since. Also shed my fears, since dental work is much less unpleasant when you're actually numb before they start. I had an epidural when I was in labor. 4 hours only the left side of my body was numb and I could feel the contractions. When I hit 8 centimeters it completely failed and I felt everything. They had to give me a second one because the first one wasn't enough. I am a redhead. My cousin is as well. They had to double dose her for her C-sections because she could still feel everything with her first epidural just like me. I wish more people believed that we need stronger medicine than non-redheads. It isn't because we want it, it's because we need it. Eye immune privilege. Your immune system doesn't know your eyes exist. There's a chance that if you get an eye injury or an infection near your eyes the immune system will think your eyes are a foreign body and you'll go blind. The war that's constantly happening inside of you. Everyone knows about your immune system but the sheer complexity of it is amazing. Like, your body has neutrophils which are like the generic white blood cell that constantly goes around your blood vessels seeking out foreign objects. But did you know there are cells called macrophages which are like way better neutrophils in the fact that neutrophils mostly swallow bacteria to kill them. Macrophages do this too except they can swallow close to 100. You have stuff like dendritic cells whose main goal is to be an early warning system. They swallow an invader then carry a piece of it back to T cells to activate them. Once they're activated, T cells swarm that specific invader and kill anything that has that antigen. I didn't even name close to all of the cells that are doing constant battle inside of you 24/7, 365 days a year. So next time you have the flu or an infection, think of the little guys inside you who gladly fight the good fight. Most of our body never gets more than 20 years old. Our cells divide, in a process called mitosis, then die. With the exception of your nervous system, the oldest organ in your body is the lungs. In terms of age of your cells, your skin never gets more than a few weeks old. Your mouth never gets more than a few days old. Essentially, the reason we age is not because the cells are old, but they lose their ability to perform functions as effectively as they go through the mostly genetically determined aging process. Your cells are only designed to divide a set number of times due to structures called telomeres. It's a little more complicated than this, but I'm not writing a textbook, nor am I qualified to do so. Some people are born with extra ribs called cervical ribs which grow from the C7 vertebrae in the neck. It's a weird and rare mutation that a lot of people don't even know they have, although it is also a cause of thoracic outlet syndrome, which is where pressure is applied to the nerves, veins and arteries running into the arms. It can be really painful and in some rare cases can cause gangrene in the arms. If left untreated it can kill you if you're really unlucky. Source: I have the non-cervical rib induced variety. My sister has that. She had to have both of her extra ribs removed. The circulation in her arms would get cut off if she raised them to shoulder height or above. She would just stop having a pulse in her arm. The doctor asked if he could do a write-up about her case for a medical journal. The mouth and anus are both continuous with the external environment, and so is your GI tract. This means that from an anatomical point of view, food you've swallowed is still outside you. Your tongue doesn't fit properly in your mouth and you're basically swallowing it. The human head weighs about as much as a bowling ball. There is a muscle, called palmaris longus, in the forearm missing in about 10% of the population. You can easy test if you have it by putting your pinky and thumb together while holding your palm facing up and flex the hand upwards. If one tendon is standing out more than the others, that's palmaris longus. Really late, but I discovered this thing during my thesis. We were researching patients with neurological problems and people who had brain injuries, and we found a woman in her 30s that had part of her brain removed. More specifically, the area that activates when you move your body. Well, she was moving and talking with just some minor missteps, and theoretically it was not possible. She was paralyzed in the first 3 months after the operation. She was caught in a car accident, if I remember correctly. We were trying out a new scanner for the brain, and we found out that an area of the brain that wasn't supposed to work and control the movement was doing just that. The occipital area, usually controls the vision, was now working as a motor control area. The brain is really amazing. Your body can, in a way, evolve during your life to fit your needs. Say you are a New York City cab driver with a normal brain. You start when you are young and are very dependent on a map or directions from the passengers. As you continue to do this for years, your brain adapts to handle its new job. Areas of your brain in charge of spatial awareness and memory of roads starts to grow, building a map in your brain. MRIs have shown a significant increase. It's not just your brain though. There is a village somewhere in the Mediterranean, I believe, where they adapt to living in water. Their homes are built on stilts in the water, and they are strictly pescatarian by necessity. Their eyes develop thicker outer layers for seeing underwater for long durations, as well as a huge lung capacity. Humans are amazing.